For those of us who have been around here for a long time, there's still an affection for the old football Cardinals. No Super Bowls, but some great Sundays watching the likes of Jackie Smith and Roger Worley and Jimmy Hart and Dan Deerdorf and Jim Otis and Terry Metcalf and Johnny Rowland and Mel Gray, Jim Bach, and of course, Roy Green. Roy's nickname was Jetstream. Very few could keep up with him. So let's turn back the clock and watch Roy Green run.
Roy Green was taken by the Cardinals in the fourth round of the 1979 NFL Draft out of Henderson State. He began his professional career as a return specialist and defensive back. As a rookie, Green set a then NFL record with a 106-yard kickoff return touchdown and quickly earned the nickname Jetstream. Touchdown! It wasn't until his third season as a pro that Green moved to wide receiver, transferring that speed to offense and taking defenses to task in the blink of an eye. Not to be lost in the blur of the jet stream, Green was tough as nails, steadfast across the middle, with unfailing hands. In 1983, he recorded 14 touchdown receptions, and in 1984, more than 1,500 yards receiving, at the time, the third most ever in a single NFL season. In the Cardinals' inaugural season in Arizona, Green starred in a memorable 24-23 victory against the eventual Super Bowl champion 49ers, scoring twice, including the winning touchdown with only 3 seconds on the clock.
Lomax throws it, Green! He's got it! Touchdown!
Green spent 12 seasons in Cardinal Red, ranking third in team history for all-purpose yards and second for career touchdowns. A blend of unquestionable artistry and majestic speed. One of the most exciting playmakers in the history of the Cardinals. Roy Jetstream Green.
Roy Jetstream Green. At one point in his career, John Madden honored Green in his annual All-Madden team. Starting at one point, he regarded Green as not the best wide receiver in the game, but the best player in the game. When Roy retired, he shifted his focus to help improve the health of current and former professional athletes through promoting sleep apnea awareness. He has helped over 150 players get successfully treated. So for many of us, the football Cardinals own a special place in our hearts, and Roy Green is a big part of that affection that we have for the old Big Red. So St. Louis, welcome home with the induction into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, Roy Jetstream Green. Jim Thomas will do the interview, and we have a special treat tonight for Roy. Here for Roy is the only player who won the Heisman Trophy, an NCAA championship, the Super Bowl, be named NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and be inducted into both the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A warm St. Louis welcome to Marcus Allen. Come on up, Marcus. Come on up. He looks like he could still play. We just want you to make a comment or two about Roy. Looks like he could still play. I mean, this guy was one of the best in history. So anyway, Jim Thomas of the Post-Dispatch, who covered the NFL for many, many years. Now he's the hockey writer, but he'll do the interviews tonight.
We're good to go.
Hello, testing. Yes.
Imagine me, a kid from the South Side, sitting here next to Roy Green and Marcus Allen. This is a pretty good night. Now, at the NFL Scouting Combine this past year, Nike gave out $1 million to the person who could set or break the 40-yard dash record. Now, this man here ran a sub 4.3. The combine record was like, I think, 4.28. You might have made yourself a little money, right?
It hurt when I watched it. It was really painful. But, I mean, you get paid $1 million for running 4.2. I wouldn't have to keep asking Marcus for money if I'd have did that.
Since Marcus is here, who would win a race between you two? What do you think? We'll let Marcus go first, at any time, now or back then. Be honest, Marcus. You can embarrass him if you want. It's all right.
It's my night, Marcus.
Yeah, of course it is, Roy. Yeah. And you reminded me of that before I got here, by the way. So. Roy was one of the more dynamic players that I've ever seen, and we've become good friends. And we were just talking about when we first met at the John Mackey Awards.
Right.
And it was something about Roy. He and I just hit it off, and we were just almost like synchronized swimmers in the way we thought. And so we ended up going out and just trying to find some place to eat, and we became great friends. And but I mean, I used to love watch Roy play, and he would always tell me how great he was. And
Roy, as I recall, you were never a wallflower.
Well, they didn't have NFL Network back then, so he didn't get all my games, so I need to, kind of let him know, understand?
Now, back before anyone had even heard of primetime, this is the original two-way player,
yes.
right here. And not only that, I mean, Deion Sanders just kind of dabbled on offense. This guy, 1981, he intercepts 3 passes on defense. He's just learning the wide receiver position in the NFL, 708 yards of receiving. You were on the field a lot, probably should have got overtime. No, you were working for the Bidwell, so that wasn't going to happen, right? What was that like? Tell us about making the shift. Jim Hannafin came up.
Yeah, Coach Hannafin did. It was actually a necessity. I mean, we had, at that time, you only carried about 4 wide receivers. One of the guys we drafted had a terrible game the week before. Mel Gray, Pat were a little banged up, wasn't sure how much they'd be able to play. So I was going to be the insurance policy. Coach Hannafin saw, after practice, most of the time I would be out running around catching balls with O.J. Anderson, Theodis Brown, just goofing off. And one day he said, you know what, I think this guy might be the best receiver I got. At least that's what he told me. And so he moved me, and my first play at wide receiver the next week against the Cowboys, I caught a 60-yarder. And when I got back in the locker room with the game, he said, you're starting next week. So, and that's how it began. Thank God, Coach Hannafin. Thank you.
And that was that. Now, the times were different back then. I can remember you played in the off seasons. You would play Bob Wallace, who is a sports attorney now, longtime NFL executive at Thompson Coburn here. But you'd play pickup basketball games at the old CBC high school. I'm guessing, just to guess, you probably won a lot of the games.
Well, Marcus already let the cat out the bag. I'm going to say yes, of course. I mean, that's just my nature.
Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back, Roy. Okay, come on.
No, my arm's used to it. It's okay. I'll be okay.
Think about that. Imagine, say, today, Kevin Demoff playing pickup basketball with Tavon Austin. Well, no, let's not imagine that. Never mind.
But you know what? I love Bob Wallace. I can say that. Back in that day, and I'm sure Marcus can attest because, it's recorded, there wasn't great relationship between, like, front office and the players. It was like them against us. I mean, it's changed so much now, thankfully. But Bob Wallace, when he came as the GM and the counsel for the Cardinals, he was a guy that kind of bridged that gap. He talked to the players on plane rides. Afterwards, he was always, just very cordial. And I think it changed the dynamic of how the players in the front office got along. And from that, we became good friends, and we play all-season basketball. We do that. And I can thank him for making me understand that they weren't enemies. And Bob's a great, great man. He's done a great job throughout his time in the National Football League. One of the first black GMs in the National Football League.
Now, you got to know the fans, too. It was, again, a different era. You met some fans from Collinsville, and you went over to see them at a place called the Horseshoe Lounge in Collinsville. Tell us about that.
Isn't it amazing that one of my memories is a lounge involved?
In Collinsville.
Yeah, there were some times in the lounge, and unlike Sandy, these were replicated quite a few times, my experience at the lounge. But the Horseshoe Lounge in Collinsville was a group of fans. St. Louis has always had a core of hardcore football fans. And yes, without question. Definitely. And in Collinsville, they had a big red fan club. I believe Nancy Chase, Sue Chase, Her last name was Chase, and she was the president. And I wanted to show appreciation, and I just visited. I just went over, one Monday night, I believe, and I started going occasionally to see them because I appreciated how they appreciated me. But without question, I love St. Louis. I love the fans here. They've always been very good to me.
Just one last thing for the Jetstream here. You know, Michael Bidwell, we kidded earlier, he's done great things with the organization. When you were in training camp as a rookie, he was the ball boy. And last year, you went into the Cardinals Ring of Honor. This man right here, he was the first player to go into the Cardinals Ring of Honor that played both in Arizona and St. Louis. What was that like for you?
It was outstanding, outstanding. Michael and Joe Buck were my ball boys. Thank God I didn't treat Michael too bad when he was my ball boy. But he's done an outstanding job there, and you can see around the country now the Cardinals are one of the most respected franchises there are. They've done an outstanding job. He has, and it was a huge, huge honor for me to go in for them to say, really, I appreciate what you've done for us. And Marcus was there again. He's always supported me. One of my best friends. You guys definitely know Marcus from how, the Heisman Trophy and the MVP, the great athlete, but you have no idea how good a person he is. And I have to acknowledge his lovely better half, Lauren, who's in the crowd. Hey, Lauren. How are you? Another terrific character. And my best friend, Willard Harrell, who played for the Cardinals. Give it up.
Yeah. Willard, all right.
Give it up. But
Marcus, final word.
Can I add one thing before we leave?
Please.
And Roy is really looking forward to the PGA Championship next year.
Yes.
Because he got a hole-in-one on the par 3 at Belle Reve, and I'm sure he's going to be heckling some of the pros out there if they don't get one. So we had a great time. It was Willard, Ozzie, and Roy, and myself, and it was the ugliest hole-in-one that I ever saw in my life. It was a short par 3.
Is there a such thing as an ugly hole-in-one?
Fell over and broke his neck. And it went in the hole. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No.
Marcus, thank you for coming, Marcus.
Wasn't it?
We're not ending on that. We're not in. First of all, there's no such thing as the ugly hole-in-one. Janet, where's Janet? There's no such thing. And by the way, Janet, I have a bone to pick with you. Now, Janet, and it happens to me all the time. You notice when she said, my new buddy? Now, we were talking about, I told her how much I loved her. This is the greatest love affair area of all time. And now she comes up here and puts me in the buddy zone. I mean, this happens to me all the time. But I love you, Janet. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. It's a great, great honor, and I love St. Louis.